Hey Jody. So the first tutorial involves this checkerboard. I'm not sure if this was part of the original image you edited or even if you made it yourself, but it's a great exercise to learn how to make something like this because you might need it in the future, and it's good Photoshop techniques. So before we go any further, there's just a couple settings for the program I want to make sure you have set up correctly. Under the View menu up here, click it and make sure Snap is checked, and below that Snap to, all these options are checked as well. And then second thing is to make sure the default background and foreground color over here is black for the foreground and white for the background. Just in case you don't know, you can hit the D key. That automatically turns these into black and white, and the X key will flip them back and forth. So in case the background is black and you want to make it in the foreground, which we need for this one, I just hit the X key and there's the black in the foreground color. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut this checkerboard out of the original image just so we can get the dimensions right and try to approximate the way this was laid out. So I'm going to highlight the layer of the checkboard, which is the top layer in your original PSD file. You can unhide that for a second and you'll see it disappears. And then we're going to Control or Command click on that layer to highlight that layer. And you can see that it's highlighted. The little squiggly lines are around it. We're going to hit the Crop tool, and then we're going to hit the Enter key and the little check mark here. Your check mark might be on the right or the left. In mine, it's the center. I'm going to hit that check mark, and there we go. There's the object we want to recreate in the same dimensions so we could place it back in that original image. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. And I'm just going to point out to you that there's a total of 20 boxes across. I counted them, 3 boxes high, and the first one starts as a black, and then it goes to white, and then black and white. We'll come back to this document in a little while to get the exact dimensions of it, to make sure our new document fits exactly in the same dimension size of this document. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a new document so we can create basically a duplicate of this in case we wanted to make it wasn't there to begin with. In fact, let's go ahead and hit new document. I already looked at dimensions of this. This is about 3 inches long and less than ½ an inch high. So the new document, we're going to make a total in inches of maybe 20 inches. And we'll make it about 4 inches high. And the resolution of this original image was 180. I checked that already. We're going to make this one 180 and hit OK. So there we go. There's a new document that we're going to create that checkerboard box in. And I'm going to zoom in significantly on that. And I'm going to scroll over to the left. So there we go. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer on top of this white background layer by hitting the new layer icon here next to the trash can. And you can see that made a new layer, a blank layer on top of the background. With the marquee tool highlighted here, I'm going to hit the Shift key and scroll downward, and that actually makes a concentric selection of a square by hitting the Shift key. And then I'm going to fill that with black. You could go under the Edit menu under Fill and do it that way. I'm going to teach you a shortcut. So with the foreground black and the background white, if you hit the Option or Alt key, and in my computer it's the Delete key, and yours it might be the backspace or the Delete key, and click on that, that fills that with black. Now I'm going to hit Control D to deselect that. And then I'm going to hit the Move tool, and I'm going to take my cursor and put it over that black box and press 2 keys simultaneously, the Shift key and the Option or Alt key, and I'm going to drag downward. Let me zoom in a little bit before we do that, and you'll see the guides come up and the Snap To option that allows me to make an exact duplicate of this box right below it, so it's evened up on this angle and on the vertical angle as well. So I'm hitting Shift and Option together and dragging downward. We have to hit the Move tool here and make sure that top layer is highlighted. And you can see the guides come up. So when those match, you see the match up perfectly. You can see it all synchronizes. No, there it is. I'm going to let go. And now I'm going to do the same thing again with the top layer highlighted. I'm going to hit the Shift and Option or Alt key. I'm going to place my cursor over that middle box, drag downward, and until it matches up, snaps, and I'm going to let go. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the middle layer, which is the box in the middle, and I'm going to Control or Command click on that layer to highlight it, and I'm going to fill that with white. So the keyboard shortcut for filling with the background color, which is white, is Control or Command, either backspace or delete, and I just did that, and that filled that with white. Now I'm going to deselect that by hitting Control D. I'm going to highlight the top layer, and then I'm going to hit Control E, which combines the layers with the top one below it. So I hit Control E once, it combines it once. And if you look at the layer panel on the right here, I'll hit it again. So now I have all three layers combined into one as one layer on top of this background. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to drag that layer down to the new layer icon next to the trash can here, and that basically makes a duplicate of that layer. So we have two layers that are the same sitting on top of each other. Now, with the top layer highlighted, I'm going to hit the Magic Wand tool, pressing the Shift key, which allows me to highlight both the top and the bottom one together on this top duplicate layer. We're now going to fill those with white. Background color is white. The keyboard shortcut for doing that is Control or Command, either backspace or delete. And I just did that, and those both filled with white. Now I'm going to hit Control D to deselect those. I'm going to go to the layer below it, the original layer. I'm going to use the Magic Wand tool, and I'm going to highlight by Control clicking on the middle layer. So I have to make sure that middle one is highlighted and the Magic Wand tool is selected. There we go. So you can see all three layers on this middle layer, and I'm going to pick the middle one. And then I'm going to click on the top layer with that middle box selected, the top layer. See, I just did that. And I'm going to fill that with black. And that's the foreground color. So the keyboard shortcut for that is Option or Alt, backspace or delete. And I just did that and filled that one with black. So now the top layer is white, black. I'm going to deselect that. White, black, white. And the bottom layer is black, white, black. I'm going to hide the top layer for a second so you can see that. So I'm just hitting the little eye next to the top layer to reveal the bottom layer. And now we have the top layer. All right. So now I'm going to move that layer over to the right. So I'm going to hit the Move tool, hitting the Shift key when you drag to the right, and you'll see if we do it right, the vertical line will line up. See the red vertical line when it's perfectly lined up? And I let go, and now we have these two layers offset. We have the black, white, black, and white, black, white next to each other. Now I'm going to combine these two layers together by hitting Control E. And then I'm going to make a duplicate of this layer by dragging it down to the new layer icon. And now we have two layers that are identical on top of this. Now, I'm going to grab this layer with the Move tool, hitting the Shift key and dragging to the right. And then I'm going to make sure the guides are lined up, and when the vertical red line appears, I'm going to let go. And now we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 of these boxes together. I'm going to combine these top two layers by hitting Control or Command E. Alright, now we have a single layer on the background with a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. Now remember, we counted there was a total of 20 boxes. So 5 times 4 will equal 20. So if we make basically 5 copies of this and move them to the right, we should have a total of 20 boxes horizontally. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to move the canvas over a little bit. And now I'm going to make a duplicate of this layer by dragging it down to the new layer icon. I'm going to make sure the Move tool is selected. I'm going to hit the Shift key and drag to the right. Get those guides lined up. So there we go. I'm going to let go. And now I'm going to make a duplicate of that layer by dragging it down to the new layer icon next to the little trash can. I'm going to make sure the Move tool is selected. Hit the Shift key and drag that to the right, and do that. So that's 3 of them. I'm going to make a copy of that top layer, same way we did before. Hitting the Shift key, making sure the Move tool is selected, drag to the right, make sure the guides line up properly. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We need one more. I'm going to make a copy of that top layer by dragging it down. Move tool selected, hit the Shift key, drag to the right, make sure the guides are lined up. So this should be a total of 20. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Very good. So now we're going to combine all these layers together, the ones above the background layer. So I'm going to hit Control or Command E a total of 3 or 4 times until we have a single layer of all these checkboxes together. Now, I'm going to Control or Command click on that layer to highlight it. And just like we did before, I'm going to hit the Crop tool. I'm going to hit the Enter key. And then I'm going to hit the little checkbox. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure the dimensions of this are the same as the dimensions of our original image. So I'm going to go back to the original one we cut out of your original PSD file. I'm going to go on to Image and Image Size, and if you notice it says the height here is 0.461. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to remember that the width is 3 and the resolution is 180. So let's go back to our document, Image, Image Size. I'm going to uncouple that width and height by clicking that little icon. So they're not bound together. I'm going to paste the height in 0.4, and I'm going to make sure the width is 3 inches like the original one was, and the resolution is 180. I'm going to hit OK. And then this document should be the same as our original one. So let's test that out. So let's hit Control A to select the whole thing, Control or Command C to copy it, and then we'll go back to the original one we cut out of your document, and we're going to hit Image, Edit, Paste Special, Paste in Place, and watch what we get. It basically covered it exactly the same. So let's just go backward a step. There it is. It's basically identical to this one. So there we go. We made a checker box the same size as that original space in your document. And it's a good technique to learn. You learn about the guides and about making a square and about copying and pasting and moving in line. And that's how I would make that checker box from scratch if I needed to. I'll give you more tutorials as I look further at your PSD, but this is the first one. Thanks, Joe.